I was wrong about Dolby Atmos. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, I'm Cole Caparoon. Thank you for stopping by for another video. In this video, I would like to just continue sharing my journey with you guys. That's been a big part of what this channel has always been about, is just me sharing my journey. And so I want to continue doing that today in this video. Some things that I've gotten wrong in the past over this topic of Atmos, some things that I've learned. So first, I'm like 10 or 12 mixes in now on Atmos. I'm absolutely loving it. So first, let's go over some things that I've learned about the format and things that I've learned to do and not to do, and then we'll get into the parts where I got some stuff wrong. Now, the first thing that I have learned is that when you're actually working with clients and you're sent stems to mix, and the artist and the producer and the label and whoever is all involved has signed off on the stereo mix and the stereo master. The master actually needs to be done before you finish the Atmos. So all of those people have signed off on that. And then it's our job as immersive mixers to make it immersive, but it also has to stay true to the stereo master. And so this is where the first part comes in that is maybe not so fun about Atmos. You can choose to look at it as fun, but you are somewhat limited in your creativity by the fact that they have signed off on that stereo master, that's what they like it to sound like. And so when you put headphones on, especially in headphones, the Atmos mix needs to get across all of the same points as the stereo. Sometimes this can put you in a little bit of a box and make it a little bit more difficult and kind of limit your creativity as far as what you can put where and how crazy you can go. Sometimes there's a bunch of stuff in the stereo mix that was just textures, like a bunch of risers, a bunch of swells, that sort of stuff, that maybe they're just supposed to be real subtle in the stereo master. But in Atmos, they're super cool to fly around the room or put behind you, or make go from the back of the room to the front of the room and back to the back. However, if it sounds like it's too much in the headphones, then you're not being true to the stereo. And so that is the first thing that has been an interesting problem-solving situation, where you learn to have the maximum creativity while also respecting the stereo master. Now, some artists care about this, some artists don't. So far, I have a conversation with these artists ahead of time. How much do you care about it matching? Sometimes I'm mixing the Atmos mix from scratch. I don't even get the stems. I just get the blank session with all the tracks. And so then I'm very honest with them. This is not going to match. I'll do my best to push it in that direction, but it's not going to match. So that's an interesting one. The next thing is the locations, the positions of stuff that work well for different things, and how that translates to headphones. So my goal at this point is to make it sound super impressive in the room and sound super cool in the headphones, hopefully beat the stereo master in the headphones. And so there are certain locations that work better for certain things, and there are certain locations that work worse for certain things. I'm not willing to discuss that just yet, because I feel like I need to hear these songs released. I've done 10 or 12 of them. The first one should be out in a couple weeks, and so there's always this giant lag time between finishing a project and when it actually gets released, and I really want to hear it on Apple Music, in a handful of ways, in cars, in headphones, actually in the rig from Apple Music, before I start divulging what I think is the right and wrong things to do. The next thing that I have learned that has become a huge part of my workflow is saturation and clipping. I may have mentioned this in a previous video, but you know, when I get a stereo master, or if I've even done the stereo master, because a lot of times I'm at least doing the stereo master and the Atmos mix, if not doing the stereo mix, the Atmos master, or the stereo master and the Atmos mix and master. Sometimes on these stereo masters, I'm smashing stuff to -5, -4.5 LUFS, and there's an energy that these masters have. There's a lot of push and pull and energy and movement inside of these stereo masters that can be really difficult to recreate inside of an Atmos mix. And so far, I'm not willing to say this definitively, but so far I think this is a big part of why there are so many bad Atmos mixes, is because what you have to do to these individual tracks to get them in the ballpark of what the stereo master actually sounds like, I just kind of think a lot of people are probably not pushing it far enough. So what I've been doing is I've been using limiters and clippers and saturation to recreate that energy that the stereos have in Atmos. Because when you print the tracks for Atmos, when you print the stems, it's not running through your mastering, through your mix bus limiter, and it's definitely not running through your mastering chain, and so you're missing all of that other stuff. So a couple things that I've done. One is I kind of map my EQ curve for the stereo master, and the first thing I do is just strap that across all the tracks, all the stems in the Atmos. So that way I'm at least one step closer to what the stereo master sounded like. The next thing I do is try to pick out the elements that have huge dynamic range. Now, this is not necessarily electric guitars or pads or synthesizers. However, kick drum, snare drum, toms, vocals, anything that's super dynamic like a dobro or a violin, anything like that, the amount of gain reduction that those have by the time it comes out the stereo master is pretty extreme. And so trying to use limiters, I use the FabFilter Pro L2 for a limiter. I've been using the Kazrog clipper and the gold clip, and I've been using Tube 3 for saturation, and the black box. I've been using tons of black box, which is one of my favorite saturation plugins ever. Tons of black box. And between the limiters and the clippers and the saturation tools, we can kind of get to a place where all of the stems have that energy that the stereo master has. And I think this is especially important for aggressive music like rock and metal, because so much of the vibe of heavy rock and metal relies on that like almost kind of pumping, almost that saturation, that like the limiting that those genres have in them. That's part of the sound of the genre. And so I feel like if we're not getting that into the Atmos mix, then we're probably not doing a good job, and it definitely isn't going to have the same energy as the stereo master. And I think all of this together is what is going to allow us to get this format to a place where one day maybe we can deliver one file, just the Atmos. And then that leads me into the things that I was probably wrong about. Before we get into that, I just want to thank Sweetwater for supporting this video. There are links down below for every piece of gear that I use, everything that's in the Atmos rig, lots of plugins that I use. There's links down below in the description for a whole bunch of stuff that I use on a daily basis. And most of those links go to Sweetwater. So anytime you guys need any piece of musical gear, you can jump on any one of my videos, click on any one of the links in the description, and purchase anything that you need. And when you do that, it goes a long ways to help support this channel. So thank you, Sweetwater, for sponsoring this video, and thanks to you guys for using those links, and I appreciate it. Sweetwater has been a big supporter of this channel for a lot of years. They have really helped me create a lot of this content. So support the people that support me, and I really appreciate it, and they really appreciate it. Okay, the things that I got wrong. Now, one of the videos that I first made on Atmos was the music industry as we know it is over. It was something like that. And this was my response to clients starting to hire other people to do Atmos mixes, because it unofficially came out that you were probably not going to get playlisted on Apple Music if you didn't submit an Atmos mix. Now, this was super controversial at the time because a bunch of people had never heard this before. They didn't believe it, but it was happening, and it just was. And now it's pretty common knowledge. If you want to get playlisted on Apple Music, you should submit a Atmos master along with your stereo master, and your chances of getting on an editorial playlist, a big playlist, are significantly greater if you have an Atmos mix. Now, at that time, I felt like I was kind of being backed in a corner. I felt like I was being forced into this format. I had never even heard it yet, And that was a real bummer, because I didn't like feeling like I had to spend a bunch of money in order to have a job in this whole thing. But I was absolutely losing money because clients were going elsewhere because I couldn't provide this. Then my first trip to Sweetwater to listen to their Atmos rig, I was like just totally blown away by listening to the format. And I still believe this. It is just the most intense, emotional way to experience music. I felt like it was hearing music for the first time. And I've had a bunch of people in this room, and most of them have the same reaction. One of them said that it was like being on LSD. So then I was like, okay, this is a cool thing, not just a thing I'm getting forced into. And then fast forward 6 or 8 months, I realized that I shouldn't do this because I'm being forced into it. I should only do this if I'm genuinely interested in the format, if I'm genuinely interested in this expanded creativeness that we get to have in this format. And so then I was like, oh, cool, well, I get to partake in all this additional creativity. I love this format. I really enjoy listening in this format. This is great. I'm going to do this. And so my attitude changed. So I was wrong at first. But then I was still kind of wrong in that stage, because I still just thought that this would... I was wrong in the way that I felt about it, but I was also wrong in the way that I explained it to you guys. And I think that's really what I'm trying to get across here. And I think a lot of you have been nervous for the same reasons that I was, and also because a bunch of us in this space are not doing a good job of explaining this to you, myself included, probably more so than anyone else. So I'm going to try to set a couple things straight here. First of all, I don't think stereo is going anywhere, just in the same way that tape and vinyl aren't going anywhere. There are studios here in town that operate exclusively on tape machines and don't even have a Pro Tools rigs. The vinyl is an enormous part of the music industry, and that's great. Like, love it. Love both of those things. I don't see either of those going anywhere, in exactly the same way that I don't see stereo going anywhere. There are always going to be artists that don't care about this, and that's okay. But in the same way that those artists that probably pretty closely aligns to the people who want to work on tape on an analog studio and print to vinyl, and like, that's a whole genre that is going to probably exist forever. Now, the thing that I don't think that I did a good job of explaining, and the thing that I've kind of been wrong about here, the other thing, is that I've been looking at this format kind of wrong, and I feel like a lot of people are. In the comments of every Atmos video that I make, there's so many comments about like, oh, well, no one's going to put 15 speakers in their living room, so this is a pointless endeavor. Present Day Productions, I'll drop a link to their channel down below. They put this in a way that I think is just as accurate and true as it could possibly be. They have a cool channel. They do a lot of Atmos content. They do a podcast. It's a bunch of good stuff. I'll put a link down below. Go check Present Day Production out. They put it forth like this is a format that encompasses all formats below it with a single deliverable. A deliverable is like the stereo master that we have to deliver to the distributor in order for it to go up on Spotify and Apple Music and all of that stuff. That's called a deliverable. This Atmos format is a new deliverable. That means that we can ultimately deliver one single file, and it covers every single situation that could possibly ever exist. But let me try to give you a better example so you can understand this. This is a Method Race Wheel 703. Now, I know a lot of you are probably like, Colt, why in the world are you talking about wheels? But this is the best analogy that I could come up with. This wheel is rated to 2,500 pounds. That means that you could put this on a 3/4 ton pickup truck and pull an enormous trailer with it, and it's rated to handle that. You could also put this on a 1/2 ton pickup and haul a huge amount of weight in the back. You could also put this on a mid-size pickup and haul 0 weight. You could also put this on the most smallest truck that anyone makes, because they only make one version of this wheel. They don't make a version for the 3/4 ton, and then a lighter weight version for the 1/2 ton, and then a lighter weight version for the mid-size pickup truck, and then a lighter weight version for the small pickup truck. They make one tire, one wheel that handles everything. It's a single product that handles all formats below it. And so they get to save a bunch of money on manufacturing by not making a bunch of different versions of this for all of the different weights and all of the different duty uses of trucks. They get to make one wheel, and that lets them sell this wheel cheaper than if they made 5 different versions of it. All 5 of those would be significantly more expensive if they had to do the tooling and the manufacturing for 5 different versions. But instead they get to make one wheel, and it encompasses the most heavy-duty thing and everything below it. So when people say that no one is ever going to hear it with 15 speakers, because no one's going to put 15 speakers in their house, one, that's true and false, because there will be some people. But second, it doesn't really matter. That's not the point. The point is to have a deliverable, a file format, that no matter what your listening experience is, whatever you're listening on, whether it's straight from your phone sitting on the counter, or whether it's in headphones, or whether it's on a Sonos or a soundbar, or from a TV, or in a car that's just stereo, or in a car that has Atmos, or your cell phone has Atmos, and lots of headphones support Atmos, and every soundbar supports Atmos. It doesn't really matter what your listening environment is. This one file works for all of it. And I think that's what I didn't understand, and I got wrong, and I didn't do a good job of explaining. There are 3.5 billion Atmos-capable devices in the world already. Now, that doesn't mean that 3.5 billion get to experience this. Of course not. There are 3.5 billion devices that have the capability to decode the Atmos deliverable as a format. So that means that it doesn't matter, it automatically scales down to whatever their listening device is. So the point is not for people to experience this thing. They can experience a version of this, and there's a bunch of ways to do that. Just holding your iPhone right in front of your face is pretty wild. Listening on AirPod Maxes is pretty wild. Josh, who's been here tuning this rig, he has a Rivian, and it has Atmos in it, a Rivian truck, and it has Atmos in it, and it's pretty incredible. So lots and lots of people will get some sort of enhanced listening experience. However, it's not the point. The point is not to try to get everyone to invest in this, or to buy a new car that has it, or to buy a new iPhone that has it. That's not the point. The point is a single deliverable that encompasses all formats, no matter what you're listening on. And I just think that this future-proofs people in terms of, movies. Like, imagine having your song mixed, and now you only need one mix to go in a giant theater all the way down to playing off of your iPhone. One single file that can encompass all of that. That's pretty incredible. So I am more sold on this being the future than I ever have been before. However, I've been explaining it wrong. And I don't think that you should be forced into it. And I also am not trying to encourage people to spend this kind of money. Do it if you want to, for sure. Do it if your clients are requesting it. Do it if you think there's a business opportunity where you can invest and then you can make that money back, because that's where I am. But I think you should just put headphones on and start playing around with it. I think you should take Pro Tools or Logic or whatever you use and put some AirPod Maxes on and start working in the format. And if you find it intriguing, book a day or an afternoon in a room like this, wherever you are, and experience it in the room. And if you can get clients on board, then awesome. Help them future-proof their music, help them experience a more intense emotional and musical experience, then awesome. But I think most people should only do this if you either have the disposable income to do it, or if you have clients requesting it, or if you feel there's a business opportunity there that warrants the investment. I don't think anyone should feel like they're backed in a corner to do this, because you can already work in the format on headphones. I'm not saying that you should do that exclusively. I'm not saying that you should release music that you've only ever heard in headphones. I'm just saying you should start getting your feet wet and not feel forced into dropping a ton of cash on speakers. I hope that this helped somebody. I just wanted to clear the air, get this off my chest. I think this is the right way to look at this. I think this is the right way to explain it. I think this is the right way to put information out. And so who knows, maybe I will change my mind in another 6 months. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.